Why buy a large popcorn and a medium soda when you can get the combo #1 at the AMC for just like 50 cents more than if you bought them separately? I would call that a value add, okay? And what about when the shoe companies, they give you like a buy one, get one 50% off, or like those pants companies, dummies, because they just actually raise the initial shoe prices, which is you actually save about like -6 cents, which is not a value add, okay? In the car community, that exists too. Car parts are platforms that are a great value, whereas others aren't really so much, okay? And the biggest segment where people seem to find themselves in like a Tony Stark versus Captain America style turmoil is none other than the 1990s JDM car arena and every car that came out of that era. I'm Alex at Fine Instagram, and today we're gonna be talking about if the cars from the 90s, specifically JDM cars that couldn't be picked up here in the States, are worth the price tag. Welcome to Fitment Industries, where we specialize in wheels, tires, and suspension for your newly acquired JDM car or otherwise. And if we hurt your feelings, we are very, very sorry. We did this because it was actually a massive pain in the ass to figure out what wheels fit your car. I remember because I made some bunk ass fitment on my 3000 GT SL that I had when I was like 17 years old. So if you are looking, be sure to hit us up over at fitmentindustries.com. And if you've got a cool car, add it to our big old gallery, big old donk gallery, which has like a bajillion cars with aftermarket modifications. So you actually see what others things fit your car and what they look like. Plus you get a shout out on Instagram. And don't forget, before we even get started, drop a comment on what your favorite JDM legend is below and why it's your favorite. Okay, if you say R34, I'm gonna need a reason why, okay? I'm gonna be reading them to see if you're out of your mind or if there's one out there that I haven't even heard of yet. It's the morning and English is hard. Looking at the basics, when we're talking about JDM cars in this video, we mean cars that for any purpose was produced for the Japanese domestic market, okay? Not just any Japanese produced vehicles. Now, see, there's lots of Japanese cars that were produced across the world that technically wouldn't qualify for the JDM tag. And this is where things have a tendency to get a little bit confusing, okay? Nor would a Japanese vehicle being manufactured in Japan make it just a JDM vehicle. Just because it's produced there doesn't make it a JDM vehicle either. Even famous vehicles like the Mark IV Supra, produced for the Japanese domestic market, with their version being different than the USDM version, that would count, where you have to be careful on which Supra you call JDM and which one is actually USDM, because that matters. When the vehicle is designed to be sold in the US market, it's not JDM, it's USDM or other. Now, a lot of times we'll just say JDM because it makes it easier for us, but I'm just laying the ground rules, all right? Like Monopoly, before you get mad at me for popping on hotels. So for this, we're looking at cars that were never sold new outside of Japan. All JDM cars are Japanese, but having a Japanese car doesn't automatically make it JDM. As long as that's clear as mud, we should be good to go, and we can roll into the next segment. You can say goodbye to a lot of the cars that we're thinking as JDM, because that's just usually what we do. It's been a I'm not saying Fast and Furious 9. JDM cars will span from compact cars, key cars, mid-size sports cars, or even luxury cars. There's really nothing specific when we start looking at JDM focused cars. So whether you're looking at a Nissan R32 or a Toyota Century, you're looking at a JDM car. And they have quite a bit of love. Go out on TikTok and you'll see that BMWs and Audis barely get the viral love, whereas a Silvia makes people that don't know what a Silvia is swoon and punch a bunch of emojis that make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. I just don't like the one that's the water. It's like the squirt. It's just really weird, okay? And I don't know what to do with that emoji like ever. Are they actually worth the price, okay? And that's the biggest thing, because holy shit, son, these things are not cheap. From a price perspective, most JDM exclusive cars that are now getting imported are getting pretty expensive, okay? For instance, when the R32 GTR was originally available for import, you could actually pick one up, typical silver or gray, typical mileage, typical everything, clean title, for right around $23,000. Nowadays, those cars are cresting $35,000 for probably a worse car. And that's a chunk of change. And sure, you get a twin turbo all-wheel drive JDM legend, okay? But it's used. It probably has some rust in the inner fender liners and below the rear window. Not to mention the jack points that are just twisted and causing additional rust issues, because that's just a typical thing that happened on R32s. It is a 2.6 liter with the strength to handle as much power as an R8 if you throw a wallet at the engine, but it does beg the question on if that car is actually worth that price, or if the perceived value of the car is actually worth that price. Price on commonly known JDM cars continue to rise, and will likely follow the same appreciation that our favorite German air-cooled cars, aka Porsche have gone through, and people still argue that 996 or 993s and 964s aren't worth it. However, there are still some diamonds out there that don't cost the same as a brand new Subaru WRX. Nissan Glorias from top rank importers is like $10,000. You can get a Suzuki Cappuccino for right around $12,000. Even if you go funky and want to buy a Honda Beat, that's gonna be around $7,000. Not everything is a $50,000 twin turbo Godzilla. So for price, are they worth it? I guess we'd say yes, as long as you know that the $50,000 cars will still need about $20,000 in modifications, and the $10,000 cars will make you smile like a Mazda Miata, except make you feel just a little bit more special because nobody else has them out there. A 90s JDM car may not be for you though if you're just looking at like base horsepower, which kind of goes into the second thing. From a horsepower perspective or just a power plant perspective, there's some pretty impressive things out there that came from the 90s JDM wave, mostly because of the Japanese economic bubble that fueled a lot of the cars that we now come to know and love. But the power will come from an onslaught of modifications, not necessarily from the standard power plant. I don't want to make RB owners mad, and that's not what I'm trying to do, but you don't keep them stock. Brands like HKS, Greddy, Tane, Enki, and more will become names that you become accustomed to because you have to, along with the occasional swear word as you swap turbos, intercoolers, and add gauges for every possible pillar to monitor your AFR and everything else under the sun, because as you go to modify, you quickly learn that it is actually a little bit more tough than just slapping a couple gauges on there and calling her good. Typically, the more you'll pay for a JDM car from the 90s, the more common that this will happen. If you go period correct, ballsy. Brian JANNUSCH, proud of you. Expensive. And while certain motors can take the power, no one should assume that they won't break, because when they do, it will be a little bit more expensive than a US comparable, and that's just a heads up. Sure, can you buy it from overseas? Yes. Can you go through eBay from Japan? Yes. Can you do all that stuff? Yeah, but it is going to be a little bit more. It's gonna take a little bit longer. It's a little bit more impatient. The next question is are you looking for turbo power or just power? There's lots of power plants stateside that can provide similar or higher numbers if you do have a budget. LSs do rule the world in this regard, and it might be worth taking a look into. I know people don't like comparing, but if you don't actually care about the platform, go LS. But the RB26 is an icon, and why so many people will still pick up this car at $35,000 to $40,000 versus like the 20 to 23. So is a JDM car worth it for base power needs? I would probably say no. Okay, their success lies in modifications, especially with their age, which this sounds pretty simple, but we do have people that will believe a stock R33 will destroy all things on the streets of Texas, and we just want to say that that's not really possible, and I'm sorry to break the news to you, but no, Fox Body Mustang though, she'll rip your heart out. What about looks? Outside of a few JDM cars, some true JDM cars are a little bit funky looking, okay? The Honda Beat looks like the Wish App version of the Plymouth Prowler, which is actually, I think, pretty cool. The AutoZam AZ1 was a perfect K car, but was still looking like just a really big Hot Wheels with a lot of fancy, angry edges. What about the Nissan Pow? The Nissan Pow. Such a good, just like a good name. Pow. That thing actually slaps. When we take a look at the 90s cars, we often think of the super sleek, modified cars once again and stick to the badge that has the name of Nissan on it or Mazda. But there's so many others out there that may hit a special place in your heart, and this is where I think JDM cars, truly, specifically JDM cars, really begin to shine, and why a lot of people really should pick one up if they are interested, specifically in the key market, okay? Segment. These are some incredibly cool looking cars that definitely beat out some of the USDM cars from those same years. Fancy tech, lots of protruding body fenders, pop-up headlights, okay? And efficiencies building small cars that have maximum potential is something that JDM manufacturers really were getting locked down in the 90s, and I think this is one of the primary reasons, truly, one of the primary reasons that if you're looking for looks being the reason that you'd want to pick up a JDM car, it would 100% be worth it, and it's okay to pick up a car because it looks good and absolutely has no other means to it, because guess what? Some people like that. There is something about a certain generation of a clean 7 on Enki wheels, clean paint, Toyo tires, and some Tane coilovers rolling under the city lights on a quiet Friday night. And it's just special. It's like just great. Wheels, tires, suspension, fitmentindustries.com. And those looks are pretty heavily built into why people love JDM cars so much. They just are something that we aren't or weren't allowed to have here in the States, and usually when it comes down to us not getting things that we want, us as Americans have a tendency to want it anyway and even more, and we'll do anything it takes to get it back. It's just kind of how it works, okay? But us wanting it is what makes it so much fun, and that perceived value is worth whoever is buying the car what it wants to be, okay? There's a pretty large group of people that question the value of these cars, the capability capabilities and the hype of JDM cars, specifically from the 90s. And after all, they do have a little bit of a point. They weren't perfect by any means. Most were very heavy. They were over-technologically-fied, which does not work. They have typical crummy interiors. They're really not that great, and spend more time on jack stands than you think. But there's a reason why JDM cars will almost always be worth it, and that's if you value the legacy of what some of these cars did or stood for at the time. And for some of us, they were the cars that were on our walls as a poster as a kid. For others, it was the cars in the first Fast and Furious film that got us hooked to the idea that there was more than just a domestic car culture out there in the world. For others, it was the racing legacy that they left behind in group rally racing or old VHS underground racing videos from Option magazine. The same reason you get nostalgic on the hours grinding on RuneScape or Tower Power in Halo 2 is the reason that people will spend $50,000 on a 30-year-old JDM car, because of what it stood for when the car was made or what it meant to them at the time. And for that, it's pretty sick. And I think that that's a pretty good reason to pick one up. But what do you guys think? Let us know in the comment section below. And if you're looking for aftermarket wheels, tires, or suspension, be sure to hit us up over at fitmentindustries.com. And of course, if you have a JDM car or otherwise, don't forget to add it to our gallery at fitmentindustries.com/ad. I'm Alex from Fitment Industries, and we will see you later. Peace.